Welcome back to another episode of Pod by the BAE presented by Homefield Apparel, your one-stop shop for various athletic gear, whether it is shirts, shorts, hats, hoodies, socks. They got it all, baby. You know, if you're looking for USF vintage gear, we got great sailing shirts. We got great logos out there. If you're looking for something a little different, maybe from a smaller school, we got some great, we got Delta State Okras and Colorado School of Mine, Burroughs, like you got everything there. So use our code BAE25 for 15% off your first order, or use our affiliate link if you would like to make any recurring purchases there. They do have a new Platinum series coming out for Platinum Box. Coming out for the beginning of football season. So if you know anyone in your life that is a hardcore fan of one of those programs, feel free to use that affiliate link and let them have the present of the lifetime to kick off football season. But to business time, we are here with renowned celebrity, major player in the game, Anthony Vito, and renowned king of University of South Florida, hard-hitting facts, Seth Varnadore. But most importantly, we are here with my brother in Survivor-related information, news, and discussion, AJ Dunn-Poe. Welcome to the podcast, my friend. How are you doing this evening?
Thank you, Steeg. I'm doing wonderful. I appreciate y'all having me on. It's been too long since I've seen all your wonderful faces.
Yes, absolutely. And for those listening in and watching on YouTube, unfortunately, we are preventing our friend AJ here from being doxxed. He is a member of the Knight. We will not see his face. I can tell you he is sporting a beautiful mustache as well. My goodness gracious, it was glorious. I only wish that we could share that glorious mustache with you all. But more importantly, for the purposes of USF football, AJ has been an integral member of our team this summer, giving us the daily rundowns of the players, the new players, the old players, the returning players, giving us little bios of them. So, AJ, tell us, you told us already you were doing this, and we thought you were a mad lad for doing so. What inspired you to go through an entire university athletics roster and giving a little bio of each one of them like this?
So to give a little bit of a throwback to the old Voodoo 5 days, the Voodoo 5 Daily Stampede days, this was something that back when we were on the SB Nation platform, some of the original founders of the site that would become the Bay Area Examiner used to run a series like this pretty much every offseason with some tweaks here and there and some breaks here and there where, 99 days to go, you preview player number 99, and 98, you preview player number 98, so on and so forth. And so this offseason in particular, I found myself thinking about that series because I think, especially in this era of college football, you have so many new players, and you have a new Collin. What's up, Collin?
Oh,
hello. Speaking of the people who founded this series, Collin among them, I think it was especially on my mind this offseason because in this area of college football, you have so many new faces, new transfers. Players are jumping from school to school, and you have to get acquainted as a fan or a writer or someone covering the program or someone following the program. You have to get acquainted with so many more new players than you used to have to get acquainted with. And so I found myself this offseason in deep dives on all of these incoming freshmen, incoming transfers, and thinking it would be so nice if we had a place where we could find all relevant information on these players in one place. And then I remembered, sometimes I write for a USF-related site. And so it seemed like the time to restart the Stampeding Through the Roster countdown. And I appreciate y'all letting me run with it.
Again, It would when you said, "Hey, I want to do this," we all, I think, collectively looked at each other and we're like, "That's your cross there, buddy. That's a lot of work to do."
That was just a little bit of context. So old Voodoo 5 Daily Stampede days, stampeding through the roster was a thing, and then as the years went on, it was like, do you really have to do this again? Like, do I have to do the same profile for this, red shirt 5th year senior? Well, that's not the case anymore. Every year it's very different. As much as it was great content, it was very time consuming. So AJ comes to us and says, "Hey, you guys have the Substack. We really haven't done too much with it. A couple of articles here and there. Hey, do you mind if we did this?" And we all said, "Absolutely." And then literally like a week later turned around and said, "Oh my God, there is 50 scheduled posts and a lot more." And there was some in there like, okay, back to May 20th is when you started. That was the reintroduction. It is August 5th. And obviously we're now into 2027-ish days. That's not just 100 numbers or whatever, because there's double numbers. And then you've also dived into some really fun articles like when you did the entirety of the offensive line, there was nothing but offensive linemen. And then you did hey, let's review the offensive line. I actually do want to talk to you about that because there were some points in there where if you were following it day to day, it was just, oh, hey, look, the 13th straight lineman. Can you talk to us about your devolution into madness? As you were just saying, like nothing but linemen. Oops, all linemen.
The offensive lineman, in the middle of the offensive lineman, I couldn't see the light for a time. And I think especially because, and I'm about to get on a soapbox that I got on again. I already got on when I went through the offensive lineman. So some people may be hearing this one twice. But my biggest old man yells at cloud take these days about college football is the numbering conventions have gotten so wacky compared to like 10 years ago when we were doing this series, where like back then you get to the 60s, you get to the 50s, you're hitting some linebackers, you're hitting, I don't know, like a defensive lineman or two. Nowadays, we've got defensive linemen wearing we have 2 defensive linemen wearing 8. We used to be a proper country.
I mean, that is ridiculous. The big fellas need to be wearing 2 numbers.
Yeah, now, look, like on a person-to-person basis, you live your truth. You live your single number truth. I'm not trying to stop anybody from trying to pick the number that speaks to them. But what it creates here is that I would say like back in the day, back in like 2010, there used to be like 19 players who had the numbers 1 through 19. Now we've got like 40 players who have the numbers 1 through 19. It does not matter what position you're playing to have the number 1 through 19. So when you hit those 50s and 60 days, it is just offensive linemen, offensive linemen, offensive linemen. And there is nothing wrong with offensive linemen. We love our offensive linemen, but any position again and again and again and again and again, it was dark. It was a dark time. And I really, after like the 6th time of writing, USF returns a lot of starters at offensive line, but they also return a couple transfers in Connor McLaughlin and Thomas Schrader, and competing with Jack Wilty. It'll be interesting to see what'll happen. There's only so many times you can say that. And there was some dark times as we got through the offensive line, but we made it. We're in the 20s now.
Just think how much easier this would have been during the Jeff Scott era. There's only like 10 guys to preview. It would have been great.
And all of this for a position where, by the way, I had a high level FBS offensive line coach go. I asked him, "How do you grade your players?" He goes, "Well, we look at every play and we give them a 1 or a 0." Like this is how complicated this is, and you just have to say, how many times can this guy get a 1, and how many times does he get a 0? Like this is insane. Change if we're changing rules, if we're going to change rules of college football, yes, NIL, all that stuff, sure. Let's change this 50 to 79. You want to keep that rule? That's fine. The rule being that you have to have 5 players on the field between the numbers 50 and 79 when you snap the ball, and those are your ineligible receivers unless they declare themselves eligible. How about this too? All those guys 50 to 79 have to wear a little chip in their jersey. If they go 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, they're illegal downfield.
No. I don't know why I thought you were going to be like, they explode like comically.
Colin, I was really worried where you were going with that. I was like, what's that chip to?
No. Have it be like the Running Man in Arnold Schwarzenegger and you randomly blow up. That sounds good. But otherwise, I'd just say Yeah, just like so if everybody wants to be between 50 and 79, that's fine, but you have to wear the chip in your jersey. Like I don't think this is insane. So
now, AJ, I'll devolve you into another sense of madness, because this is another reason why we had steered away from this for a while. At what point did you realize that there was an influx of transfers that were coming in post spring that would not have a number until like a week ago? At what point did you realize that, and did you have an existential crisis, yes or no?
Yes, it was the sword of Damocles hanging over my head, was the fall enrollees. I was just
great Survivor reference there too.
I was so close to being done with all of these. Like truly, I was down to like single digit numbers of players left. And then all of a sudden that fall roster drops and I have all those fall enrollees to cover, and a lot of them have low numbers, so I still have to hit them. It was a sad day for me. While everybody was rejoicing to see all of the fall transfers make it to campus, I was like, oh, couldn't we have missed one or two? Couldn't we have a couple academic ineligible players? But no, we had a great roster filled with lots of wonderful new players who are all everyone who we expected to make it to campus made it to campus, which is awesome for everybody but me. It was terrible for me. Awful day.
I do appreciate, like, clap and a half that the fall enrollees came out. We were talking about, oh, it's exciting, let's pod about this, and you're like ripping your hair out. And then all of a sudden you said, oh, hey, there's an article scheduled to go out. And all of a sudden, Stampede bonus, fall enrollees, here you go. And I was like, what? Wow, that was instant. It was just one of those moments.
Funny moment there where I think I had the fall roster came out, and I had prepared the what I thought was the preview for the next day. And it turned out that I had my days wrong, and it was actually today's. So I was like, well, I wrote the thing, I may as well send it out at 9:30. Everybody was probably enjoying their, pre-nighttime activities. And they got some Dorian Mallory in their inbox unexpectedly.
Jump scare. I love that, seeing that in the inbox. You know what? I'm pleasantly surprised too, because this is really the first diving into the newsletter. We kind of were talking about, do we want to have all of these show up in a newsletter email to everybody every day, sometimes twice? These are all getting really good open percentages, 60% and more. That's actually pretty neat. One thing I really like to sometimes open these up and being like, oh my gosh, you embedded YouTube videos of their huddle, or like their media, like here's a funny link, or here's like, I didn't even know how you could embed YouTube videos in here, and you just did it. I was impressed.
I really do appreciate like the people who have been following, the people who have been reading, because it tells me I can literally see exactly who reads it. So I know who likes me and who hates me. And the people who like me, I very much appreciate, because I think there have been two moments that I both thought were very funny with respect to all of these emails and posts. One being my wife was going through her email the other day that just had like a whole lot of unread email. And she was just kind of like, oh, I got to delete all this stuff. Just clicked on like 5 stampeding entries and put them directly into the trash in front of my face. I was like, oh, I see what it means to you. And then the other one, I was actually like, it was the other day, I was like real busy at work or something, and an email comes in, and it's it's the day's stampeding entry. And I actually had like the instinctual thought like, oh, not this guy again. And then I was like, oh, this guy is me. I'm the problem. So point being, I really appreciate the people who are locked in and reading every day, because they're fun to write, and it's fun to get up to date on all these new players. So I appreciate the crew who's sticking around and reading.
Has anything stuck out to you about the roster as you've kind of gone through it? Any interesting patterns, or like, size, or anything that's really kind of stuck out as you've kind of made your way through?
So the first point that I want to get to on that, which I think is interesting and probably kind of different from what we'll talk about later in terms of the literal roster makeup, is I think there are some interesting things when you really get in the weeds here on literal roster numbers. You start to be able to read some tea leaves, or at least think you can read some tea leaves, because I had a conversation, we all did, in the Discord before the fall roster dropped, where we were talking about how much they were expecting Lachlan Hewlett to play this year. And Lachlan Hewlett in the spring had number 11, which is Keyshawn Singleton's number, presumably USF's number 1 receiver this year. So I was basically operating under the assumption that if you are a quarterback and you're wearing the number of the presumed number 1 wide receiver, there's no chance in the world that you are expected to play in that coming season. And we talked about, like, a couple days before the fall roster drop, and we were talking about when Bryce Archie was still on the team, we're saying how much are they counting on Bryce Archie to be the backup versus Lachlan Hewlett. And I said something to the effect of, if the fall roster comes out and they change Lachlan Hewlett's number or they change Keyshawn Singleton's number, then I think we have something with Lachlan Hewlett here. I think they're expecting some big things because they're basically telling us that he might be on the field this season. Lo and behold, fall roster comes out, he's wearing number 13. So weird things like that, I think, are fun. It's fun that you're able to pick up weird stuff like that from this kind of countdown. That could mean absolutely nothing. Who knows? Maybe the guy likes the number 13. But it's very much in line with what we've been hearing from fall camp and from spring camp about how well Lachlan Hewlett's doing. So it's kind of cool that there's weird crumbs and tidbits from the roster that you can pick up from spending way too much time on this thing. So that's the first answer to your question. The second being, it's really interesting seeing where and when USF thinks or thought that they needed to hit the portal and their portal approaches on what position groups need reinforcements and when do they need them. The defensive line being the big one. I would say about 50% of the defensive line is going to be new guys that were portaled in this year. And a lot of those guys were portaled in after the spring too. And it makes you wonder, were they happy with what they had on this roster in the spring? What were the guys that they pulled in it after the spring? Guys like Devin Lee, who is potentially expected to be a starter. Guys like Denard Flowers, who got a lot of good publicity in the last couple fall pressers. So it's interesting seeing where they thought that this roster needed reinforcements. Linebacker was another interesting one where you got the 2 spring transfers with Chavez Brown and Rocco Nickel. Running back, Sam Franklin came in after the spring. So really interesting seeing where those reinforcements landed and when they landed. It kind of gives you an idea of what the coaching staff might think about what they have at these various position groups.
Yeah, and I think Golish talked about they kind of after spring, especially in the D-line, they'd reassessed and like, we need some older guys here that are ready to play right away. So they seem like they went out and got that. Do you have a new favorite player or anything after kind of reading through these bios? Has anybody stuck out to you like, this is my guy now?
One guy that is really easy to get excited about as both a fan of football and a fan of people doing cool stuff is Moody Rubin. I mean, so to give a quick breakdown off the top of my head on Moody Rubin, he was a nationally recruited soccer player in high school, started playing football, I think his sophomore year. He went to school outside Kansas City and only started playing football his sophomore year of high school, started getting nationally recruited, also played kicker on his team, which makes sense with the soccer transition. And his final 2 visits, he had a good rating from the recruiting services, had a bunch of good offers. His final 2 visits were Stanford and Vanderbilt. So the guy's brilliant. And he goes to Stanford. He graduates in 3 years from Stanford, all while playing. And starting his sophomore year some too, or I suppose his redshirt freshman year. And so I'm thinking, okay, this guy's played football for 3 years at Stanford. He graduated in 3 years. Surely he's not doing too many extracurriculars. Surprise, the guy has started a nonprofit. He's founded this nonprofit providing clean water to his family's hometown village in Nigeria. He founded this nonprofit using his NIL funds that he got at Stanford. I mean, it is just absolutely amazing, the life resume that he has put together. And he's just the kind of guy that you want representing your university and your university's football team. And that was all cool, right? I was like, that's really awesome. What a talented young man. But then you get into fall camp, they are talking Moody Rubin up. The coaches, the quarterbacks love this guy. It was not someone I had on my radar as a guy who I thought was going to be a first string receiver. I think he might be now. I mean, I'd be curious to hear what you guys think. But since the fall camp started, Alex Golesh has been talking about him a lot. He clearly loves the guy. Byron Brown in his pressers has been talking about Moody Rubin a lot. So that's a player who would satisfy both the excitement category, both on exciting that they're bringing such a talented guy into this program, and excited that I think he could see a lot more playing time than I initially envisioned.
Yeah, he's a guy that we had some people talk to us about, just kind of off the record, kind of behind the scenes at media days. He's a guy that's name got mentioned a couple times by a couple people. So I think he'll definitely be in the mix, which I know we were going to talk about a little bit. I don't know if we're ready to move into that too, but just kind of the press conference stuff from recent practice. It's hard to tell with this group if hearing your name a lot in the press conference is going to result in playing time. We've seen it go both ways in the past. We're seeing some guys like Moody Rubin get mentioned a ton. What is your take? You think it seems to me it's like if it's a young guy, it's more of an attaboy, and this is a name to watch for the future. If it's an older guy, there's a little bit more to it. Is that how you guys take it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly kind of what it is, because I believe it was – I think Nate brought this up a while ago. He said, like, during one of the pressers, and this is a totally different coach, was talking about Chris Oladokin was, like, slinging it, was – very impressive in practice and everything like that. And then lo and behold, guy gets drafted in the NFL a couple of years later. So I think it's a general good rule of thumb is that unless your coach is really psychotic, usually they're not saying anything bad about any particular players. You know, you might say that a position group really needs to prove themselves. They kind of always paint it in a positive light. But whenever, they talk about like a guy like Mac Harris, they talk about every single presser. Of course, you're expecting Mac Harris to have a big year, but when they're saying young guys, like Corey Pettigrew, for example, I think is probably the best example of it right now. He's getting a ton of love in the pressers, being discussed a lot as a true freshman wide receiver. I'd be surprised if we were to see him take significant snaps this year. I mean, he might come in late, preserve the red shirt, play in the 4 games that he needs to or whatever, but I think in the case for these young guys, they have a lot to learn about the speed of the game. A lot of them get their lumps on special teams a little bit first before, you start really seeing them make the difference on the practice field. But it's kind of like hey, file this guy for later because he's going to be really good for us.
And Neptune was another guy that's kind of popped up recently. They've really kind of went above and beyond praise. But last year we heard a ton of, even like behind the scenes, a ton of, Brandon Winton. And then the season, he doesn't really play that much. So I think it's positional a little bit. Like receivers, I don't think when we ask Golis about this, when we talk to him, it's hard to play early at receiver in this offense. So some of it might be just traits. Hey, watch out for this guy, but it's hard to get on the field early. AJ, Mr. Dunn-Poe, as you've gone through the roster, what position group has stuck out to you? Where do you think the strength is of this team? Is it the 35 offensive linemen that you previewed?
So the offensive lineman is interesting. I have a lot of thoughts about the offensive lineman, clearly. We can get to it in a sec. I think because when we're doing all these, when we're doing these player-by-player breakdowns, at the end, I like to kind of put it together in one unit breakdown where we're like, okay, we went over all these players. Here's how I see the unit breaking out. And the offensive lineman obviously got the first go at it because that's the first group of numbers that gets finished. And in that, I kind of try to break down my thoughts about the particular units. If I think it looks good, if I think I was expecting them to bring in more guys, we need to see more from the unit before we can feel comfortable with it, etc. And the one that I feel really, really good on, like I feel good putting a check mark next to it, like everything that I'd want to see there, I see there, is linebacker. You've got 2 returning starters who are leaders of your defense, who are, I think, your last 2 leading tacklers in the last 2 years. Both guys who kind of surprisingly got a year of eligibility this year from what we call the chaotic eligibility goblin. It was like a real thrill to have both of them back, Mac Harris and Jalen Schuler being those 2 players. You guys who have all conference type potential. Then you have a bunch of young guys, at least exiting the spring, you had a bunch of young guys like Rodney Hill, Xavier Hamilton. Rodney Hill played some last year. Xavier Hamilton was a big-time recruit, one of the biggest that Alex Golish and company brought in over the last couple of years. And you're saying, okay, that's a great unit. How do you bridge the gap between the best players in that unit, your seniors, and your young underclassmen? They go out in the spring and get 2 guys who started at Group of 5 schools in Chavez Brown and Rocco Nickel, both of whom are senior in Rocco Nickel's case, or up to the whims of the chaotic eligibility goblin in Chavez Brown's case, because he was a JUCO player, so he may have another year. But both guys who are coming in, and I don't think the expectation is that either one of them is going to start over Harris or Schuler, but provide fantastic depth, guys who have already started at this level and at this conference in Chavez Brown's case, and can help bridge the gap from your much accomplished older guys to your hopefully future at the position in Hill and Hamilton. And Gavin Leach is a guy who we talk about getting shout outs in the pressers. Coaches have been going crazy on Gavin Leach since the spring. He got a lot of shout outs in the spring. Todd Orlando shouted him out recently in his presser. So you've got a lot of young guys in this unit that look like they might be a lot of fun in the future. You've got Harrison Schuler leading the way, and you've got great depth with Brown and Nickel. I mean, that is a unit that I look at and say, no notes, everything looks pretty good here.
Yeah, and Golish mentioned those 2 transfers, I think, in his last presser, kind of talking about, hey, if Schuler and Harris slack off at all, these guys are ready to step up and take their jobs. So he said that's kind of pushed them to be even better, just because there's a little bit more pressure on them. So what position group gives you a little bit of worry?
I think it's the trenches, and for 2 very different reasons. The offensive line, for the reason that they were not very good, at least in the first half of last year. And I think I would be curious to know y'all's take on how much of that first half of the year to second half of the year improvement was getting better, personnel changes. There was one big one with the Lofton to Best change at center, getting healthy some with Zane Herring starting to play again. Or if it was just that we played a much harder first half of the season than we played a second half of the season. And we can talk about that later, because that's a whole other can of worms on the offensive line. But that was a unit that I think was good enough last year to win you games against teams that were not very good in the newly minted American Conference. That was an offensive line that could totally dictate the game against Charlotte, could totally dictate the game against Tulsa. Was getting swamped against Tulsa and Memphis, not to mention the out-of-conference games. So last year, in the beginning of the season, that unit was not good enough to contend at the top of the conference, which I think is what the goal is here, is to contend at the top of the conference. And so that concerns me. But I think the approach that they took was interesting with the offensive line, was that they did not panic, scrap the thing. They didn't say, we're going to bring in a bunch of new transfers. They basically brought back the entire unit from last year, save for a couple guys. Andrew Kilfoyle hopped in the portal, and they brought in Thomas Schrader and Connor McLaughlin. Schrader from App State, McLaughlin from Stanford, both of whom have starting experience. And so they beefed it up a little bit with some new players, but by and large, this is the same unit that we had last year. And that's really exciting in some senses, because I look at the starts and the pure experience on this line, and they have 7 guys on this line who have started at least 10 games at the FBS level in their career, which is nuts. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen that in a USF unit before, certainly not in the USF offensive line before. And That number goes to 9 if you just say any guys who have any starting experience at the FBS level. And that's so cool. I mean, it's awesome. Offensive line is a unit that I think definitely benefits from having guys in the same system and playing with each other. The non-cool part of that is that last year they weren't good enough. So is trotting that same unit back out going to be enough to take the leap into the upper tiers of the American like they want to? I don't know. So that's the offensive line. My concerns there. And then on the defensive line, kind of the opposite sort of situation where their best players on the defensive line, arguably Doug Blue Eli and Bernard Gooden, both transferred, and they kind of took the opposite approach from the offensive line, and they portaled in a ton of guys here. And you really get the inclination that they are going to be rotating a lot of guys in this defensive line. And there's not necessarily one or two like who are going to be the dude on the defensive line. You get the idea that their intention is to go 2 or 3 deep on the defensive line and really run out a lot of bodies this year. And that's exciting. That's pretty cool because they have a lot of bodies. But do they have any guys who I look at their profile and I say, wow, that guy is a game changer? I don't know that I see that yet. I mean, Seliskar was great at UCF, didn't play at A&M. I think he's probably one of the more high-profile transfers they're pulling in. Same with Devin Lee. He was productive at Vanderbilt for a few years, but didn't play last year for them. Guys like Dre Butler and Jacob Merrifield, they were productive American Conference players, which is fun to see the proven production. But is there anyone there who I'm like, oh, that's a game changer on the defensive line? I don't see that yet. I see a lot of dudes. And a lot of dudes is awesome. But is a lot of dudes going to be good enough to get to that upper tier? Again, I don't know. So the trenches, the two places that are concerning me a little bit for 2 different reasons.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the biggest, make or break at this point is, can the offensive line give Byron Brown enough time? Can the defensive line be disruptive enough to disrupt the other team's quarterbacks? Like that's the make or break of college football in a nutshell, especially in the group of 5 is, can your offensive line keep these guys healthy? Can your defensive line, be this disruptive force? And I think you probably put it best is that there was 2 different approaches there. One was a very calm, cool, collected. We're not going to panic. We're going to, right this ship, but we're doing it in our own way. And the other side is, we're going to bring in more guys to compete for this job because evidently on the defensive side of the ball, your mantras are a lot different. You have the young guys who can step up there. You have the older guys who still have stuff to prove, a lot of experience, et cetera, et cetera. And thankfully on the defensive line, you can rotate a little bit easier and better than you can at the offensive line, right? If a guy, if you need to do a mid-draft switch on the defensive line, it's a lot easier to be able to look and see 12 different guys come in on the field at any particular time. So to that point, I think that shares most people's concerns as well. I will also probably say that wide receiver is another big concern. I think that there's a lot of unproven potential in that group, but not nearly as much as like the offensive line or the defensive line.
I got a question for the group. Do we think you can keep a dude at defensive line in current G5 football?
Ooh, it's hard.
Does anybody in G5 have a dude anymore? It seems like they all get, because I don't think Gooden was a dude and he got snatched up by LSU.
Yeah, I mean LSU. I think for sure, like it's a position where Seth, I think you'll agree here. It's a position where the tape's going to jump out and it's going to translate probably better than any other position. Like you don't need to be a football expert to see that Ed Oliver was like an absolute freaking nature. Like if you just, whether he's playing at the G5 level or the P5 level, if you have that ability to cause havoc and chaos, it's going to stand out. I don't care who you're playing against. So yeah, it's probably, edge rusher, quarterback. Those are probably the 2 positions that are going to be picked up the easiest just because you can see on film what the skills will translate or will not translate. And then like I guess for running backs, like or X receivers, like just pure speed. You can you don't need rocket science to figure out if a guy's running a 4.3 40 and has hands, you should probably not be playing at the G5 level.
Yeah,
That's definitely the hardest.
Also, I keep thinking about Gooden being such a highly sought after guy in the portal, and I think it's more to how few like really kind of elite like guys from Power 5 D lines go in the portal, to whereas basically all the best G5 guys are the ones that are getting picked up.
They're all rentals, baby. We are the Ajax Amsterdam of college football.
It just seems like that's the hardest position group. Even if you're a P5 team and you're looking to increase your offensive lineman potential or your defensive line, that's the hardest position to find. So all of a sudden their price goes up to get them into the portal, to get them to commit to your team. And it's like, okay, maybe you're paying just because some guy has 3 years experience, all of a sudden you say, well, he's the best that I can do, or that's the best option that there is out in the portal. That's why it's so much harder for G5 to say, okay, well, we need to bring in guys. You gotta really just offensive line, especially. And that's why it's like, Hudenek is as the offensive line coach, you almost have to rely on your recruiting and your ability to coach them up, because you can't really afford to say, okay, well, we're just going to go portal heavy on the offensive line, even defensive line. It doesn't seem to really work. And then heck, some P5 teams go say, we're going to go ahead and go portal heavy there. And if it's a bad portal class, I don't want to say bad, but like it's not a perfect portal class. Maybe you're not bringing guys in that are up to that snuff that you're looking for. And, that's why you start sniffing around G5 teams, which, of course, there's no tampering. Never. It's not happening. I'm not saying there's any tampering that's ever happened or that it was here. So, AJ, you mentioned our friends Mike Lofton and you mentioned our friend Josh Salazar. You actually released our article today, Stampede Bonus. How did USF's new players play against USF? Just a really fun kind of concept in the transfer portal era of like, oh, hey, you're bringing in players who also played against you. How is that? And I do like your number 2 excuse for your purpose to do this exercise was, I don't know. It's just, I think it's neat.
And that really was all there was to it too. It was just, as I was going through this, I was like, so many of these guys have played against USF before. And what a strange world we live in right now with football. I mean, that used to be like a really weird thing. I mean, I remember when and to be clear, I think everybody on this podcast, I think it probably goes without saying. And if you're listening to this podcast, I assume it goes without saying that you're pro, athletes' rights and being able to go and secure your bag, and that they are not the people breaking the system, certainly.
Buddy, you're not hanging out in the free. You're not hanging out in the free Discord enough. Trust me.
Is Pernetti listening to this?
There's definitely some folks that are missing the calls to Indianapolis for free pizza.
So point being,
high five and soar the eagle.
Yeah. That it's just, with all of that said, it is so bizarre. I mean, I remember when I first started following college football, and like, if you wanted to transfer within the conference, like they made you answer like 3 questions at the risk of being thrown off the bridge, right? Like it was ridiculous, like the hoops you had to jump through. You could just, I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like, if you wanted to transfer, your coach could just block schools.
Yes.
Because they were just like, ooh, I don't think you should transfer to that school. And normally it would be like teams that they're playing in the next couple of years or teams within the conference. But sometimes the coaches would just be like, you want to go to Arizona? Guess you can't. And so it's crazy that this, and again, like in a lot of good ways, this changed a lot of good ways, but it's crazy that this concept of now having guys on your team who you have played against, or guys on your team who are going to play against their old teams, is this very new and novel concept that as I was going through this, I was like, what a bizarre age we live in. But the other age was bizarre too in different ways. So
I know USF has guys that played against each other at other schools on the same team, which is odd as well. So
it's so strange. It's so fun to watch this, and I just like how you encapsulated it. and just it reminds me that USF got 2 Charlotte transfers from last year. I remember that game, watching that game. It was on my birthday, so glad they won. But I was just like, wow, okay. But you did mention Ruben. He lit it up for me in college football 2026. So I'm very much whatever happened in that game to me is going to happen this season. So I'm very much Cartavius Norton, 1,000 yards. Get ready for it. Ruben, get ready. You're going to get 500 yards. You're right up there. You're going to be my number 2 receiver. It's going to be great. That's what's going to happen. The video game is what's happening in real life.
I'm still waiting for the Jaquan Smith explosion that everyone experienced in their dynasties last year.
That did happen in year 2 for me. So
here we go.
I did appreciate that. I think I mentioned it in the Discord at some point because people kept on asking why Jaquan Smith is on punt gunner, not punt return. And I was like, the dude just likes to hit. And lo and behold, in one of the practice clips that we got, I think like 2 days ago, Jaquan Smith was right there doing gunner on for the practice or for the special team squad. So weird comeuppance there. Guy just likes to hit people and run fast, which we can't blame him for. But
speaking of special teams, AJ, am I allowed to say that I know you and that we're friends, or do we have to edit that out? Like, I don't know how that works.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So, yeah. So I've known AJ a long time. Can you recall the greatest numbers, speak to the numbers guy, the greatest numbering mishap in USF history?
The greatest numbering mishap in USF history. And I'm assuming it has something to do with special teams based on your intro.
It was an onside kick.
An onside kick. No, I have no idea. The only thing that jumped to mind, and it's not even relevant to this, was when they had the All-American on the track team who was a walk-on the football team, and they spelled his name wrong.
Oh, Jesus.
I can't remember the guy's name, which I'm clearly part of the problem too. But that was
You got to earn the correct spelling.
That's yeah. Just go blank back at that point. But I am, and I was hoping you would help me recall. There was a home game at Ray J, and I forget if it was Skip or Willie, but it was in that era. We recovered an onside kick. We had 2 guys on the field with the same number, and it got called for illegal substitution, and we lost.
That does feel like and
super USF is hell. Yeah.
Yeah. And acknowledging that Willie Taggart was a miles better coach than Skip Holtz at USF. But that does feel like a distinctly like first year Willie Taggart type mistake that would have happened in that season that I like really would have talked myself into being like, oh, this happens all the time with first year coaches, like, oh, it's just growing pains. You just, that first year Willie Taggart was rough, but anyway.
What about when they put the team on the back of the jersey?
Oh, and they couldn't do it.
They couldn't boo.
Was that your era, Steeg?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My God.
That's one for the Ponderosa to talk about the downfall of that. But circling back to this, we do have at least a little bit of news that we could talk about that's been going on in the college football world is the preseason watch lists have started to come out, of which USF is starting to get some players and names recognized there. So just to quickly recap over the last week, I think they started to release them. So Deshaun Rucker was named to the Jim Thorpe Award watch list. Christian Helms, wide receiver, was named to the Werfel Trophy watch list, which goes to community service and partnership that he does there. Additionally, Byron Brown was named to the Walter Camp Player of the Year watch list. Garrett Cates was named to the Patrick Manley Award watch list, which goes to the nation's most outstanding long snapper. How they're able to discern that, I don't know. I'm a special teams guru, and I don't even know how you can probably get that going. Cartavius Norton was named to the Doak Walker Award watch list as of tonight, and I'm sure a few more are going to pop up tomorrow morning. So based off of preseason watch lists, they don't really mean too much. They're just more of, hey, this is a nice guy you might want to think about. Guys, any comments, any things you want to say there? I think Seth has something burning to say.
Byron Brown and Keyshawn Singleton named to the Bruce Feldman Freaks list.
Yes, which is the most important.
Yes,
It really is. Bruce. Everybody reverts back to that, and it's always neat to see when the old alma mater gets on the freaks list.
Two freaks this year. Now, I think Will Jones was on this list previously, so
he was a freak. I mean, like he squatted what 700 pounds or something like that.
The freaks list caused me to draft Will Jones, is what I'm saying, and then he did nothing for me in fantasy football. So,
oh man, I forgot that's coming up. Can we talk about Keyshawn Singleton? How freaking cool! And you guys, when you were in Charlotte, I think Coach Golish actually brought this up about your second year in the system is when you kind of really get a handle on it, and you really saw the end of the year him come about. So interesting to see what the wide receiver room is. It is interesting to hear that he mentioned that, hey, the more you have in the system, the better. Maybe a guy like Chaz Nimron, who's come from a similar system in Tennessee, could benefit from that. But yeah, that's a room, again, it's just when the coaches talk about dudes on podcasts, I go like, oh, okay, think about it for a second. But yeah, I mean, look, Keyshawn Singleton, I mean, again, great in the video game too.
Did they say 5XL glove? Is that what it was in the
3XL? Yeah, I just found it. 6'3", 215 pounds sophomore. He's added 30 pounds since arriving to Tampa from Georgia. Wears 3XL gloves.
22.4 miles per hour and squatted 535 pounds.
He came in at number 72 on the freaks list. Byron came in at number 42.
Wow. Squatting 600 pounds.
Good Lord.
Running 22.5 miles per hour.
Gonna run over some dudes.
So speaking of dudes.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Dude talk.
So, and this kind of ties into what we were talking about on the defensive line. And Seth, what you were talking about with when you're a group of 5 team nowadays and you're looking at your fall roster and you're thinking, how many guys on this team do I know are a dude for me, right? Like how many guys on this team, like that, let alone defensive line, because defensive line, the number might be 0 right now based on what we were talking about. But like, how many guys on this team do I feel like I look at my roster and I say, okay, I feel great about that position because that guy's there, or I feel great about that guy at that position. If that is our definition of the dude, and speaking of, and given that the roster, the counting down of the roster is the topic du jour, how many dudes do you see on this roster?
Hold on, I gotta do math. You're gonna do math. I think we have a number of dudes.
Because what brought this up is that I think Keyshawn Singleton is a dude. Like I think he could be really, really good here and soon.
I think Cartavius Norton is also a dude. Big time. Byron Brown.
Dude.
Wyatt Sullivan.
Wait, hold on. How can we say Byron Brown's a dude when we got his 2024 tape?
He's a dude.
I think
he's a freak. Like
we got his 2023 tape too.
Yeah,
I don't care how many. We could talk about those overthrows from Alabama and all that other stuff.
Now,
yada yada.
Maybe he's just too big of a dude now.
Correct.
That's the question. Is he too big of a dude?
The dude inflation economy.
I think you have 2 dudes at tied in with Wyatt Sullivan and Jonathan Eccles. Jonathan Eccles seems like a guy that's freak list bound at some point in his career.
I'm just going through the stamping through the roster. Mac Harris, dude,
for sure, and Jaden Schuler,
yeah.
Okay.
I'm just as I'm going through these.
Rucker, dude.
Rico Watson,
Rucker's
ability to be a dude.
Has Rucker
if we're counting
dude
defense
status?
Rucker fell off in the second half of the season, but he certainly first half of the year I think was dude.
I think
seeing Cole Best in person,
dude,
close to dude. He was was jacked. He was humongous.
I'm going to say Rico Watson.
So do we think how much is dude tied to NFL player? Is it one of the same?
I think they could.
If you look at, so I don't know if you guys can tell me if they've done this before. But the Shrine Bowl put out 1,000 player watch list, which is basically, I think, guys that they could potentially invite to the game. USF had 3 guys on the list: Byram, Deshaun Rucker, Jalen Schuler.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think those are 3 dudes, but I think there's more dudes than that. But those are 3.
I got one
dudes.
more dude for us, purely based off of size alone. Is Chase Leon. You're close. You're very close. Getting my first look at Chase Leon the other day punting at 6'5", 222 pounds.
At his age, he's a man.
He is. That's not fair. But
he's graduated from dude to man.
Yeah, that's
senior citizen.
He's getting AA. Actually, he's Australian. He can't get
They want to keep one guy on the roster that can rent a car just in case.
just in case they get lost. Actually, who was it? Who's the guy that fixed the bus?
That was Hodgson, right?
That's Hodgson? Yeah. Hodgson's going to fix the bus, and Leon's going to pick everyone up for the rental car. Beautiful. All right. We're at like 52 minutes, and I think we can wrap it up there because we have some Ponderosa talk tonight. But AJ, so good to hear from you again. So good to see you again. I only wish we could just display this handsomeness that you guys would all thoroughly enjoy. But I know if we did, it would have adverse effects. He would have to go into hiding to be, everyone just fangirling around him. So AJ, appreciate you hopping on, talking numbers and rosters with us from Seth, Vito, and Collin, and myself. And more importantly, homefieldapparel.com. Don't forget to use your sign-up code BAE25 for 15% off your first order, or using our affiliate link in the description for your home field apparel needs. From all of us, thank you, good night, and go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.